reason and emotion. Um, David Hume is often hailed as a feminist philosopher. And I think the reason for it is a mistake, because he really wasn't especially a believer of rights for women. But the reason that the feminist philosophers often point to Hume as a good philosopher is because one of the points he makes is that we can use reason to argue for lots of things. But when you get right down to our axioms of belief, so to speak, those don't come from reason, they come from emotions. There are emotional attachment to certain principles. And Hume recognizes that these come from our culture, they come from the way we were raised, our community. So when I think of ethics and I draw my map, I put Aristotle, virtue ethics, as focused on the self. I want to achieve excellence for myself is the main goal of my ethics. It's social, but nonetheless the focus is on my excellence, my happiness. With Hume, it's the community. The moral point of view that I grew up with comes from my community. So if I get into a conflict, say, over what's right and what's wrong with, say, someone from another cultural perspective, I can use reason to argue with them. But I'm not going to persuade them because at root, we're both using a particular tool to argue for a particular emotional attachment to a different point of view.
So, in his case, our world is nurtured.
Yes, yes. And morality is too. So it's not that there is a correct morality out there and some cultures have access to it and the other ones not. No. What we conceive of as moral is emotionally associated with the way we were raised. And that is moral. In other words, morals are socially embedded in a particular cultural point of view. So if I think that women should have equal rights, I grew up in a culture that essentially blossomed to allow that. Intriguing, I think it might even have something to do with the nature of English. Because in English, males and female persons and some animals can be referred to as masculine and feminine, but almost everything else is neuter. Everything is an it. Even in French, when we think about French, you have masculine and feminine, no neuter.
Oh, yeah.
And so everything in the cultural mindset, and by the way, this is a critique that Pierre Bourdieu makes in a book called Masculine Domination, that the French language itself is essentially a code that says male things are like this, female things are like this, and that's the way your mind thinks. And so even the criticism he made to the French people saying, French isolates the feminine from the masculine, so you can't easily find grounds for considering everyone equal. The French said, no, we don't. They couldn't see it because they're actually immersed in it, right? But it's pretty obvious for someone speaking English to look at it and say, yeah, French does that. Right? Tables are feminine, chairs are masculine. Why is that the case? German's interesting because there's some neuter, but you still have a heavy, a lot of things are male, a lot of things are female. Why on earth would that be male? It's just kind of strange how the language developed that way. So we get this wonderful line that reason is the slave of the passions. That comes from David Hume. So I use reason, and I can really learn logic and try to be a sterling debater, but I'm not actually going to ever be able to persuade someone to give up the fundamental emotional attachment to the beliefs that essentially drive
Personal
drive it.
values. Yeah.
Right. That's pretty intriguing and seems to be pretty accurate. Today, of course, when we think about the neural pathways in the brain, the ones that are the significant ones become like the major highways where data has to run, and as a result, if I build other roadways or so, to increase traffic to other neighborhoods, still the main traffic is going to run down those neural pathways, and I'm not going to be able to give those up. You're not going to have somebody say, it'd be easier to get from Eagle River if we go from Muldoon straight over, to, let's dig up the Glen Highway and put a new highway. No, that's not going to happen. Even if it would be right, that's not going to happen. This is fun.